$2,000 cash for a phone. Not for the phone, really, for what it promised. No calls anyone could trace, no messages anyone could read. A clean line straight past every wiretap and warrant on Earth. To a man who moves cocaine by the ton, that promise is worth more than the car he parked outside. So he pays. And he trusts it with everything. The shipments, the prices, the partners, the secrets that could put him away for the rest of his life. What he doesn't know is that the company selling him silence is the FBI. He didn't buy a phone, he bought a wire. And he's about to do something stranger still. He's going to sell it to his friends. The phone was called Anom. From the outside, it looked like nothing, a calculator, a clock, a settings menu. A phone so boring it was almost suspicious. But punch a secret code into that calculator, and a hidden app slid open. Encrypted messaging and nothing else. An Anom phone couldn't call your mother. It couldn't browse the web or send an email. It did exactly one thing. Talk to another Anom phone. That was the point. A closed loop, a private country with a population of only criminals. It sold for around $2,000 and the sales pitch was beautiful in its honesty. It wasn't a phone for everyone. It was, in the words of the people selling it, designed by criminals for criminals. Supposedly beyond the reach of American law, the kind of promise that makes a trafficker relax and start typing things he should never write down. By the time it was over, more than 300 criminal syndicates would be typing on it in 45 languages. And every word would land on a server the FBI controlled. To understand how the FBI ended up running a phone company, you have to go back to the company that came before. For years, the secure phone of choice in the underworld was a modified BlackBerry sold by a firm called Phantom Secure. The camera was removed, microphone removed, GPS stripped out. Everything routed through servers the company swore no government could touch. Its customers included the Sinaloa cartel. Business was very, very good. Then in 2018, it ended. The FBI arrested Phantom's founder, a Canadian named Vincent Ramos. He pled guilty to running a criminal enterprise, was sentenced to 9 years and forfeited around $80 million. Prosecutors called him the first CEO ever convicted for knowingly handing cartels the tools to stay invisible. But here's what a takedown like that actually does. It doesn't kill the demand, it creates it. Overnight, tens of thousands of the most dangerous people in the world lost the phone they trusted and went hunting for a new one. A market suddenly desperate with nothing to fill it. The FBI had just watched a problem become an opportunity. All they needed was a product. A man facing prison was about to hand them one. The court records don't give him a name. They call him only Afgoo. He'd been a distributor in the encrypted phone world himself, the same world Phantom Secure came from. And now he was facing charges of his own. But he had something to trade. He had already started building the next great criminal phone. He even had a name for it, Anom. So he made the FBI an offer. Take the platform, take my contacts, the dealers, the middlemen, the men who sell those phones to the men who use them. Let me build it for you, and in return, cut my sentence. The Bureau said yes. According to its own affidavit, the FBI paid him roughly $120,000 plus expenses, and quietly became the financial backbone of the whole operation. They weren't going to break into the criminals' phones, they were going to sell them. There was just one technical problem to solve, a small one. How do you read every message on an encrypted network without anyone ever knowing you're there? The answer would become one of the most audacious surveillance operations in history, and it started with a single hidden line of code. The FBI didn't crack Anom's encryption. It didn't have to. It owned the lock. The way the Justice Department later described it, the system worked like a blind copy line on an email. Every message a user sent out went exactly where he wanted it to go. And a second, silent copy went somewhere else, to a server in another country where investigators could read it at their own leisure. The sender saw nothing. As far as his phone was concerned, the message was perfectly, beautifully secure. And the people writing the code, most of them had no idea. The developers were hired off the open market and told they were building a secure app for businesses. The operation was sliced into pieces so cleanly that the engineers, the salesmen, and the criminals never knew they were all working on the same machine. Only a handful of people on Earth knew what Anom really was. And now came the hard part, getting the phone into as many criminal hands as possible. And to do that, the FBI needed help from the other side of the world. It began with 50 phones. In late 2018, Afgoo handed them to 3 trusted distributors in Australia, men with direct lines into organized crime. The Australian Federal Police were in from the start. They helped build the very capability that made the messages readable, and they ran this first phase under the court's blessing. Then, they watched the messages come in, and almost every single one was criminal. No false positives, no confused grandmothers, just crime in plain text scrolling up the screen. A year later, it went global. The FBI arranged for a third country to host its own copy of the collection server. Quietly, under the country's own court order, the data passed back a few times a week. American filings never named the place. Later reporting, backed by court records, pointed to Lithuania. No government has ever confirmed it. The wire was live. The phones were out. Now, Anom just had to spread. And it was about to spread faster than anyone in San Diego dared hope, because of one man who had no idea what he was selling. His name was Hakan Ayik, an Australian, a fugitive, and prosecutors say one of the most powerful drug traffickers alive. For years, he ran his empire from the far side of the world, beyond the reach of the police hunting him. And according to the Australian Federal Police, the FBI used him, not by arresting him, but by letting him sell their phone. Ayik trusted Anom completely, so he did what a trusted man does. He recommended it to his network, his suppliers, even his rivals. When a figure like that vouches for a phone, the underworld listens. Allegedly, without ever knowing it, one of the world's greatest criminals had become the FBI's top salesman. And he wasn't alone. Around him, a layer of so-called criminal influencers pushed the phones like a brand, setting up accounts, vouching for new buyers. The trust spread the way trust always spreads, person to person, handshake to handshake. Every handshake was a new wire. This is the strange, dizzying heart of the whole story. The FBI never had to force Anom on anyone. The criminals wanted it. They competed to get it. They sold it to each other. They built their own surveillance and paid for the privilege. Then the FBI got lucky. In the summer of 2020, French and Dutch investigators broke into EncroChat, another encrypted network used by criminals across Europe, and harvested tens of millions of messages before it collapsed. Months later, a second giant, Sky ECC, was taken down too. Picture how that felt from the inside if you're a trafficker, a criminal. The 2 safest phones you know just got ripped open by the police. You're exposed, you're frightened, you need a new phone today, and you need to be certain it's clean. And there, waiting, with a glowing reputation and a fugitive kingpin's personal endorsement, was Anom. Demand didn't grow, it exploded. The number of active phones climbed from around 3,000 to nearly 9,000. Every spooked criminal across Europe came looking for higher ground. They ran straight onto the one network on Earth that was actually owned by the police. By the spring of 2021, the FBI wasn't running a sting anymore. It was running the largest wiretap the world had ever seen. And it was watching everything. Imagine sitting in a room in San Diego and watching the criminal underworld talk to itself, live. That's what this became. Analysts watched Anom as a glowing web of connected dots lighting up city to city, continent to continent. Software summarized the fire hose of messages as it poured in. 80 translators worked through 45 languages of it. And the criminals held nothing back. Why would they? They believed they were safe, so they said the quiet parts out loud. I need 1,000 kilos at this price. Photographs of cocaine packed into tuna cans, hollowed out pineapples, diplomatic pouches, the whole machinery of the global drug trade laid out in pictures and plain text for the very people trying to destroy it. Agents learned the slang. They learned that -1 could mean a man marked to die. And one investigator's entire job, day after day, was to open every photograph crossing the network. Searching the background of the stranger's selfie for a gun, a face, an address, looking for the next murder before it happened. Because that was the part nobody upstairs could ignore. The FBI wasn't only reading about drug deals, it was reading about killings, planned ones, coming ones. And now it had to decide what to do about them. Here's the impossible math of a secret wire. Every time you act on what you read, you risk showing your hand. Move too openly and the criminals realize someone's listening, and the whole operation dies. But sit on a warning, and someone gets killed. So carefully, quietly, the warnings went out. Authorities say the operation headed off more than 100 threats to someone's life. In Australia, police say that they stopped a plot to gun down a cafe full of people. They say they stopped a plan to murder a family of 5. In Sweden, investigators say they prevented more than 10 planned killings. The people whose lives were saved mostly never knew it. They never knew that a phone they'd never heard of, in a language they didn't speak, in a country they'd never set foot in, was the reason they woke up the next morning. For almost 3 years, the FBI held the most powerful secret in the criminal world. The only question left was how to end it, without ever letting them know that it had been there at all. Every secret has an expiration date. This one had a literal one. The court order in that third country, the legal permission to let the FBI retrieve the flood of messages, was set to run out on June 7th, 2021. After that, the wire went dark whether they liked it or not. And the cover was beginning to fray. That spring, an anonymous post appeared online quietly asking an uncomfortable question. Was Anom a honeypot? Was someone listening? Most criminals shrugged it off, but the FBI could see, in the messages, the first flickers of doubt. So they made a choice, not to fade away quietly, but to slam the door all at once, everywhere on Earth in a single coordinated strike. They'd let the criminals keep typing right up to the last possible second. And then, one morning in June, 800 of them would answer their doors to the police. June 7th, 2021. It happened everywhere at once. In 16 countries across every time zone, more than 9,000 officers moved on the same morning. They hit over 700 locations. They made more than 800 arrests. The scale of what they'd gathered is hard to hold in your head. 27 million messages, around 12,000 phones, more than 300 criminal organizations, in over 100 countries. 8 tons of cocaine, 250 guns, 55 luxury cars, tens of millions of dollars in cash and cryptocurrency. In Australia alone, police charged 224 people on the first day. And when it was done, the prosecutors finally got to say the thing they'd been sitting on for 3 years. The supreme irony, one said, was that the very devices these criminals trusted to hide had been beacons leading the law straight to them. They'd been screaming their secrets into a microphone the whole time. But amid all those arrests in all those countries, there was one place strangely absent from the map: the United States. Almost no one was arrested in America, and that was on purpose. The whole machine had been built to stay on the right side of the US Constitution. The 14th Amendment protects Americans from unreasonable searches, so the FBI walled the United States off from its own wire. Phones inside the country were fenced out of the system. American messages by design went unread by the Bureau. Anom was never meant to be a tool for spying on Americans. It was a tool for spying on everyone else. So in the United States, the case stayed narrow. An indictment of 17 foreign nationals for running the network, the men who built the phone, not the men who used it. It was a careful, lawyerly line, and it would have to hold, because almost immediately the lawyers came for Anom, not in America. In the courtrooms of Australia, the fight over the most ambitious wiretap in history was just getting started. The defense's argument was clever. Copying those messages, the lawyers said, was really wiretapping, and the police didn't have the right kind of warrant to do that. If they were right, the cases against thousands of people could collapse. The courts went back and forth. Then the Australian Parliament did something extraordinary. It passed a law, after the fact, confirming the warrants had been valid. Critics called it exactly what it looked like, changing the rules of the game after the game was won. But in 2025, Australia's highest court upheld it. The evidence would stand, and the convictions came. One distributor got more than 5 years in an American prison. By 2025, every distributor extradited to the United States had pled guilty. The wire kept giving up secrets even after it went dark. Reporters traced that mysterious third country to Lithuania and found a strange detail buried in the court records, suggesting the FBI's own request for help had been quietly edited before it was filed. And not everyone was cheering. Civil liberties voices asked the harder question: should a government ever build, sell, and run a product designed to spy on the people who buy it? One technologist who studied surveillance gave his verdict in a single word: bonkers. Strip it all away, and Operation Trojan Shield is a story about trust. These were some of the most careful, paranoid people alive. They tore the cameras out of their phones. They spoke in code. They paid thousands of dollars for silence. And every precaution they took led them deeper into the one place they should have feared most. They didn't get hacked. They didn't get sloppy. They got sold the wire. And they trusted it so completely that they handed it to their friends. The thing they built to disappear is the thing that found them. Every secret leaves a trace. They just never saw that they were the ones leaving it. If the FBI running a phone company unsettles you, wait until you hear about the time the CIA secretly owned the company that built the world's encryption machines for half a century. That's next. Dead Drop. Some secrets get out. Subscribe, and you'll be here when they do.